Judiciary's own guide. I had paid for training and read pages of documentation on the court's own website to ensure I never fell foul of contempt of court. Do you know what the government lawyer's response to that defence in court? Do you know what he actually said? Unbelievably, he said that the guide to reporting restrictions, which has been published on the Judiciary's own website and has a foreword from the Lord Chief Justice himself, was wrong. That's it, he said it was wrong. I couldn't actually believe it. But the prosecution's entire case was that it did not matter that I followed my training, that I spent hours reading and learning the Judiciary's guide for reporting restrictions and followed it to the letter. They simply said that the legal guide which I followed from their website was in fact wrong. So I breached the order. My government were going to get an end result no matter what. A prosecution finding me guilty no matter what, and that's what they got. All of the details I've discussed here were raised by my barrister in court. Have you read about any of these points in any of the press reports of my trial? Of course you haven't. It just highlights how corrupt the entire system is and how the mainstream media are just propaganda puppets for the governing establishment. Last year, Leeds Court broke every single legal procedure possible. They refused me my own legal representation, did not even tell me what I was accused of doing, did not ask me to plead guilty or not guilty. Instead of letting me speak, they sentenced me to 13 months prison in a 10-minute trial. Something you could imagine being held in North Korea. It was rightly thrown out on appeal after I had already spent nearly 3 months in solitary confinement. Judge Marston decided that day that I needed to be immediately removed from the street and sent to prison within minutes. The Muslim child rapist with 16 witness statements detailing the rape and torture of many children he deemed were no risk to the public and provide them with bail so they could continue to walk the streets alongside mine and your children. One of those monsters decided to do a runner the week before the case finished, and it's believed he is still hiding in Pakistan. That dangerous child rapist monster was on the run for months before the reporting restriction was lifted. This meant the press could not even tell the public or warn them, or appeal for witnesses, or try and find out his whereabouts. The government's #1 priority, first and foremost, is to ensure the safety of the British people. But it appears the need to suppress the scale of these gang rapes across the country trumps everything else. This scumbag rapist is still free and to this very day evaded justice thanks to Judge Marston. Do you know that no one in over 60 years has ever been in prison for a publication reporting breach? The Judiciary's reporting restriction guidelines do not even mention prison. They reference the possibility of unlimited fines for journalists. Rod Liddell breached the reporting restriction in the Stephen Lawrence murder trial, detailing the defendant's previous criminal record, which risked collapsing the entire murder trial. He wasn't even prosecuted. Instead, the magazine he wrote the article for was fined £3,000. Journalists at the Daily Mail and the Daily Mirror both published prejudicial information on the Levi Bellyfield murder of Millie Dowler. It was so prejudicial that it collapsed the entire case. The jury had to be discharged. The journalists themselves were never prosecuted. Instead, the Daily Mirror and the Daily Mail were fined £10,000 for collapsing the entire murder trial. They actually robbed one of the victims of justice. A total penalty of £10,000. You couldn't make it up. I spent 3 months on solitary confinement already. They want to send me back to jail. This year, Arif Ansari, the editor for the BBC Asian Network, committed the most significant publication breach possible by revealing the identity of a child victim and witness in the Rotherham grooming gang trial. He done it live on air. Child sexual victims are afforded complete anonymity in the legal system for obvious reasons. I've personally spoken with this poor girl, and after the editor of the BBC Asian Network shared her identity on air, as a consequence, she was subjected to vile threats and intimidation by family and friends of these Muslim child rape monsters. The BBC were forced to make a payout in compensation to her to try and smooth it over. Arif was taken to court this year, but a judge decided he was not guilty of contempt. Although it caused this unfortunate child rape victim further trauma, it was just a mistake, according to the judge. Not guilty, according to the judge. £3,000 fine for risking the Stephen Lawrence murder trial. £10,000 penalty for collapsing an entire murder trial, and a not guilty for revealing a child rape victim's identity live on air, resulting in death threats. Now you can watch on Thursday when the corrupt British establishment will almost certainly try to send me to prison for the second time and make me the only person ever to be in prison for a publication reporting breach, despite not actually even breaching it according to their own guidelines. It has been proven in court twice that what I said could not have prejudiced the trial. The monsters were convicted and the case finished months ago. Look at these other more severe breaches which receive small fines or nothing at all, and then ask yourself why I received a 13-month prison sentence in a kangaroo court back in Leeds. That is because the British state's politically motivated attempt at shutting down dissident voices and generally trying to have me killed by Muslim gangs in prison. There can be no other reason why they moved me out of the complete safety in HMP Hull and onto the wing of the highest populated Muslim CCAT prison in the country. If a defendant is accused of a crime which could land them in prison for greater than 6 months, it is the law that he or she should stand in front of a jury of their peers to ensure fair justice. This contempt of court charge holds a 2-year prison sentence, yet they are refusing me a jury of my peers because they know full well that 12 ordinary people would throw this crock of shit straight out. This is a backdoor way that the Attorney General and the government can effectively sentence me to death in prison by bypassing a trial by jury. Even people who don't agree with my political views must be able to see how unbelievably corrupt this entire process is. The fact that the judges heard all of this in court and still came back within minutes to find me guilty of all 3 charges makes a complete embarrassment of the British legal system, which was once respected across the world. The fact that the government do not care how bent and corrupt this looks is even more worrying. The establishment has betrayed democracy on Brexit. Everyone needs to wake up and realise we're run by a handful of elites who are all connected and actually do not give a damn what the people actually want or vote for. They do not care that the British justice system looks like an absolute joke across the world. All they care about is getting what they want. We are run by nothing more than a globalist dictatorship. The British establishment spends its time virtue signalling about big bad Russia and China, stating that they have appalling human rights and are clamping down on free speech. You are the biggest bunch of hypocrites to walk this earth. The traitors that are running this country have destroyed it. They are removing our fundamental freedoms step by step, every single day. There are Islamic terrorists already serving 30 years in prison for being caught with guns, knives, IEDs. They were on their way to murder me. The British state has issued me with 9 Osman warnings, informing me that they have credible intelligence that Islamic extremists or far left extremists are plotting to murder me, my family. Despite this, they refuse to provide me any details of that intelligence and inform me that I cannot take steps to protect myself. If you have watched this video, you can see this is a complete sham prosecution. My legal team will look to appeal as soon as we have received the written judgment next week. This persecution has already cost over £115,000 in legal fees, and the cost will continue to escalate. I need to try and lodge an appeal so that they do not effectively work towards having me killed in prison. You can help support me towards these costs at tommyappeal.com. I can't thank those who have contributed enough and will be eternally grateful. I am Stephen Yaxley Lennon, but we are all Tommy Robinson. Never ever surrender yourselves to the enemies of free speech.